Going back to the supply shock, we've just never seen in the history of Bitcoin so much of the coins being scooped up and bought and locked away by very strong holders of the coin.
And then you wrote, my macro top target has now increased to 300K and previously it was 250K. Can you elaborate on what you meant there?
It has protected every top in Bitcoin history. And so currently that top target is launching upwards. And at the start of this year, January, it was zoning into a area of $200,000 to $300,000 by December. December of this year is typical to what we would expect for the end of a bull market. If we get that, not saying that will happen this time around, but if we do top out in December, that target now is lifted to above 300,000 because the trajectory of that upper band of that moving average.
Bitcoin price prediction by Willy Woo for December of 2021. In this video, on-chain analyst Willy Woo gives us his updated Bitcoin price prediction for December of 2021 based off a Bitcoin top model that has predicted the top of every single one of Bitcoin's last bull runs. Make sure to stick around to the end of the video where technical trader Peter Brandt explains why we are nowhere near a Bitcoin bubble, and we go over some recent bullish on-chain data that suggests where the Bitcoin price is likely to go from here. Also, only a tiny percentage of my viewers are actually subscribed. If you enjoy the video, consider subscribing. It's free and you can always change your mind. Enjoy the video.
And Willy, in one of your recent newsletters, you wrote, quote, Bitcoin is undergoing the largest supply shock in its history. The steepest price rise seen so far in 21 has been supported by strong fundamentals. And then you wrote, my macro top target has now increased to 300K and previously it was 250K. Can you elaborate on what you meant there?
Going back to the supply shock, we've just never seen in the history of Bitcoin so much of the coins being scooped up and bought and locked away by very strong holders of the coin. And we can see this from tracking the flows of coins out of the exchanges where typically people speculate or buy and sell their coins, and they have a set inventory, some of which is allocated for speculation. And we've just seen an unprecedented amount of depletion of that inventory. If you look back in the 2017 bull market, we saw like a 5-month depletion of inventory, and that was enough to propel the bull market of 2017 right up to the 20,000 from what initially was about $1,000 to $1,500 when that inventory depletion ended, and now we're kind of in this zone of 11 to 12 months of inventory depletion. We've not seen this before, and you can look on chain and look at the holders, and you can see the wallets that the holders, the behavior of the wallets by the holders, and there's a category where we term illiquid. These guys are just accumulating, buying and accumulating without any history of selling. And these guys are just hoovering up the coins. So there's a real supply shock. There's less and less coins each week that goes by that's available to be bought. And so obviously there's a mismatch between demand and supply, and that has launched the price vertical. And for some technical traders that do trade indicators on the price fluctuations, they're all screaming overbought, overheated, whilst if you look into the ledger and see the demand and supply of the coins by fundamental investors, you can see that it's fully supported. And so I run a very simple model. It's called it's a mean reversion model, which is in simple terms is a moving average on the market cap, all-time moving average, and you can use that to predict tops. It has predicted every top in Bitcoin history, and so currently that top target is launching upwards, and at the start of this year, January, it was zoning into a area of $200,000 to $300,000 by December. And December of this year is typical to what we would expect for the end of a bull market. If we get that, not saying that will happen this time around, but if we do top out in December, That target now is lifted to above 300,000 because the trajectory of that upper band of that moving average. It's very unusual because normally what you expect is as more retail comes in, more mums and pops, ordinary people off the streets, they tend to buy their coins and hold them on their exchange wallet because it's just a very easy experience. So we've had this general trend of more and more coins being stored on exchanges like the Coinbases of this world. It's a very easy to use experience. But in this particular cycle, we're seeing huge amounts of coins move off exchanges and being locked away under their own custody. And that's a signature of institutional players coming in and high net worth individuals. They tend to store their coins under custody and in cold storage. So those clues and just the sheer size of the purchases, you can see the size of the withdrawals coming out from the exchanges. They just really point to institutions scooping up coins. So it's very, very unlikely it's anything else but the institutions.
And by that, you mean like Tesla, MicroStrategy, the corporate treasurers that are buying Bitcoin, or are there any other institutions you would include in that bucket?
Yeah, institutions is kind of a menagerie, really, because in simple terms, it's just coins held by a custodian for a whole lot of people, whether that's Tesla and their shareholders or fund managers. So it's looking like we've got hedge funds coming in. We've got the corporate treasury led by Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy, and now the latest is being Tesla. But we've also seen announcements that it's pension funds as well. Grayscale said they had a lot of strong buying from there. I've just seen that New Zealand has announced that one of their funds for pensions has bought into Bitcoin in October. So yeah, across the gamut, there's all sorts of institutions buying right now. It seems like the word is out that Bitcoin is now a valid investment alternative to gold in these times.
But what I have noticed looking at the exchanges in terms of the bid-offer spread, what happens on the bid, what happens on the offer side, is oftentimes when a market blows off, and we hear some people say this is a big bubble, we're blowing off, Bitcoin's a bubble. There are characteristics of a bubble. One of them is that markets go up fast with bids. There's aggressive bids that take place in the late stages of a bull market that kind of blow it off. And all those bids come in and chase the market's FOMO. What we know is retail FOMO takes place within the whole market. This market is very different. What I've noticed is the market's not necessarily going up on aggressive bids. What's happening is an offer comes in and just immediately gets taken. And so this nature of the bull market is such that what I see is whenever something is offered, it's just taken immediately by somebody who's willing to take the offer. So rather than going up on bids, it's going up on higher offer prices, higher and higher offer prices. That may sound like there's really no difference to people who I'm familiar with how markets behave. But for me, as a technical trader, that's really significant because it shows me that there are big names, there are big, deep top pockets that are saying we're not going to chase the market, but whenever something gets offered, we're willing to take it. And that kind of resonates very well with what Willy described.
Yeah, so you're saying that whenever there's a big offer on hand, large enough for a very large purchase to come in, they'll take it because there's not a lot of offers that size that's on the table, and they're just waiting for whenever there's an offer, they'll take it. Yeah, that's interesting.
So there's Willy Woo and his prediction model expecting an over $300,000 Bitcoin by December this year. If you are a Bitcoin holder, let's hope he's correct. Now, for two charts directly out from Willy Woo that I wanted to cover again on the channel. First up, in case you missed it yesterday, an interesting charting idea that shows you how Bitcoin is only really just getting started this bull run. If you chart the total Bitcoin capitalization against a US dollar M1 money supply, we can see that even with Bitcoin's huge run up to over $60,000, charting it against a USD M1 money supply, we aren't even at all-time highs. I guess that's what happens when you exponentially print money. An interesting way to look at BTC. Next up, we have the Bitcoin adoption curve. This is a classic chart, but for those that haven't seen it before, you can see how exponential the adoption of Bitcoin is and how similarly it rivals the adoption of the internet. Sometimes you just have to take a step back and look at the trend. Imagine what we will be in a decade from now. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed today's video and that provided you with some value. I'll see you in the next video, and as always, have a great day.